King Tutankhamun, the most famous king in Egyptian history. Although really, what did he do in his life? He left a lot of treasures is what he did. And we know about him because of the discovery of KV-62 in 1922 by Howard Carter. So I get a lot of questions in my teaching about ancient Egypt, a lot of them around King Tut. There's so many mysteries. So today I want to answer your most burning questions. If there's any question I don't cover, please write it in the chat. Why am I doing this now? Because this year, I think, is another year of King Tut. They're going to be opening these two immense halls at the Grand Egyptian Museum this July, where all 5,300 of his treasures are being displayed together to tell the story of his wonderful life and death. So let's delve into it. First of all, who was King Tut, other than a guy who had a really nice mask? King Tut was the third last king of Egypt's 18th dynasty in the New Kingdom. Egypt actually had three kingdoms, old, middle, and new, and some intermediate periods. Some people say Egypt is in yet another intermediate period in these last couple of years. Anyway, he ruled at the end of the 18th dynasty. He was the third last king, one of the last of the Tutmosid line. And he ruled between 1333 BCE and 1323. We're never sure within 20, 30, 50 years way back in history. He was possibly the only son of King Akhenaten. So let's go to the next point. Who were his parents? His parents were much more famous in history. They did a lot more, whether you like it or not. It was King Akhenaten, the rebel king. The inspiration for monotheism, the crazy looking guy with the elongated features who portrayed himself as man and woman, who changed the culture, who changed the religion, who changed the capital, the art. This was his son. And his mother, well, we have the mummy of his mother, but we're not sure who she is. She was found in the late 19th century in the tomb of Amenhotep II in the Valley of the Kings, one of the mummy caches, and she's the younger lady, and she looks like she's been murdered. In fact, experts say she absolutely was murdered. Was she Kia, the secondary wife of Akhenaten? Was she Meritaten, Tutankhamun's older sister? Was she someone else? Was she Nefertiti? And some people still wonder if she was that. So we have his parentage through DNA research, and that's it. He also had about 5 half-sisters at least. He had a couple of full sisters, and he married one of his half-sisters, Ankhesenaten or Senpaten, who, and both of them changed their names. They were born Tutankhaten, Ankhesenaten. They became Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun. What did King Tut achieve in his brief rule from age 9 to about 19 when he died? Well, to be very honest, not a lot. He lived at a very important time, though, at a critical time in Egyptian history, coming out of this period of revolution. It's commonly referred to as the Restoration, but he was a child. So who was really running Egypt? There were 3 men. There was the vizier, this old guy called Ai, who would succeed Tutankhamun. There was the general of the army, Horemheb, who would be the last king of the 18th dynasty. And there was the treasurer, Maya, who ran the financial strings. So it's kind of like, if I can make a modern parallel, who was really running the country under Biden? That's big in the news today. There were other people running the country for Tutankhamun and overseeing a restoration, a move away from Akhetaten as the capital in the middle of Egypt, back to Thebes, ancient Waset, back to the traditional ways, the traditional gods, Amun. And there's a great restoration stela where in Tutankhamun's words, he talks about this country was suffering under disease, and I brought it all back to the traditional ways, the traditional gods. But who really wrote that decree? He was a child. Did he like the fact that his father and mother's world was completely obliterated? Probably not. We don't know. It's all speculation. He lived at a very important time. He died young and left a lot of treasures. Those are his accomplishments. Number 3, why was his tomb never found, undiscovered for years? For millennia, where all the other tombs, or many of the other tombs, were discovered. A couple of reasons. Number 1, his tomb was located under a steep water course where flooding brought down a lot of debris over top of it. But more importantly, about 200 years later, a couple of kings, Ramses V and VI, had built this massive tomb. It's really worth seeing, 5, 6 in the Valley of the Kings. This huge tomb over top of his tomb. And the workmen's huts, the work crew who built this massive tomb, their huts and debris covered over top of the entrance of Tutankhamun's tomb. So it was really lost to history. But here's something you may not know. It was robbed twice, probably within a year of Tutankhamun's burial. Thieves got in. We have the evidence. Everything was in shambles, especially in the annex room. But they got out. They may have been caught. Anyway, it was robbed, but they only got little things. I mean, how can you drag out an immense throne or a chariot without being noticed? They went for the jewelry, so we only have about 60 to 70% of the original jewelry. And they went for the precious oils and unguents and perfumes that could be melted down and resold. So there you go. Why was the tomb undiscovered? It was small, under a watercourse, other tombs built over top of it, and it was robbed twice. Okay, next. What was in his tomb? Well, I mentioned we have about 5,300 wonderful treasures, but not all of them were fabulous gold and precious amulet. There was really intriguing furniture. There was a fold-up camping bed. There was an ostrich fan with the ostrich feathers still on it. There was beautiful, lots of different depictions of Tutankhamun out hunting, and he loved hunting, even though he may have been, well, we know he was disabled. Also very telling, in his tomb, there was about 100 staves and sticks, basically walking sticks, for a king that we know had a club foot and was quite disabled. So we have also, he liked wine. There was red and white wine, which is rather unusual in the tomb. There was meat, there was flowers. There was 90 pairs of shoes. We know he was about a size 8 or 9 shoe. He was about 5'6" in height, and he had a fantastic wardrobe. Some of the wardrobe really disintegrated under Carter's hands, but they've done a lot with restoration to bring back a lot of these wonderful footwear and beautiful robes that he would wear. So you're going to see that in the new collection. That gives you kind of ideas of the treasures in his tomb. 4 rooms in the tomb, chock-a-block with treasures. 4 chariots. Oh, maybe there's 6 chariots. Sorry, 6 chariots, lots of beds, chairs, thrones, boxes of amazing things, headrests, you name it. Okay, next question would be, what caused Tutankhamun's death? Well, Tutankhamun's mummy, even since 2005, has been investigated with CT scans and modern technology about 4 times. It remains, his mummy, in his tomb. What they have found, and even there were early scans dating back to Carter's time in 1925. So what the experts have found over the years, it's still non-completely conclusive. His poor mummy was subject to all sorts of terrible things. And I don't blame Carter. Carter worked at a time, I mean, he had a lot of struggles. The entire mummy was covered with this gooey unguent, and he had to detach the mask and everything from these coffins. It was very hard work. The head got detached, the limbs got detached, everything was a complete mess. So the CT scans reveal that a lot of damage to his body was made during this first process of Howard Carter taking him out of his tomb. So the head was damaged. There was a story that he was killed with a blow to the head, maybe by Ai, who succeeded him. This has really been ruled out as false. Any damage to the head would have been Carter trying to get the goo off of his head and off of his body. So no to that. Hawass was a big believer in the fact there was a leg injury. He definitely suffered some sort of bad leg injury that maybe got infected. Some people say, no, it may have been a problem, but may not have led to death. It healed. Others say it may have contributed. He had malaria, certainly. There were signs on his skin. They also analyzed his blood. So there was a malaria issue. Oh, he had all sorts of things. He had a cleft palate, a club foot. He was not a healthy guy. So what ultimately caused his death? One theory that I think is very interesting that hasn't been completely refuted, his entire side that the heart is on was missing. Could it be that Tutankhamun, who loved to go out riding in his chariot, had either been out hunting or maybe even participated in war, had been out hunting and had fallen out of his chariot, had been getting himself up when another vehicle had plowed into his side and ultimately killed him, a hunting accident or an accident at battle? That seems convincing. Why is the heart missing? Why is the whole side of him missing? There's a crazy theory, maybe not so crazy, that he was killed by a hippopotamus attack. These creatures can be pretty nasty. But ultimately, we don't know conclusively what killed Tut. We do know that he had, sadly, 2 stillborn daughters, also buried with him in his tomb. What happens when you have a relationship of incest? He married his half-sister, maybe even his full sister. You don't have successful pregnancies. So he didn't have offspring. And the final question, I know is a lot on your mind, was there a curse of Tut? Certainly the ancient Egyptians believed in curses. And in earlier tombs, there were very clear indications, do not disturb this tomb or you will be cursed. Not so much in King Tut. There's a couple of reasons we've come to believe in the curse of Tut. And one was fake news. When Carnarvon and Carter discovered the tomb, Lord Carnarvon, with his Highclere Castle, needed money. He sold the rights to publish all of the treasures only to the Times, and the other papers were very jealous. They needed to trump up other news, to find other things to talk about. So of course, when Carnarvon had an untimely death, which was because of a mosquito bite that got infected in sepsis, they blew everything up. Then they connected all sorts of weird things to entering the tomb. But ultimately, without going too deep into it, you can kind of draw some parallels to some deaths. But it's fun to write about this in the news. But is there really any evidence? Would you not think that Howard Carter would have died right away if there was a curse? He lived to, I think, 64 years old. He was a chain smoker. He died of cancer just before World War II. There was a guard who slept in the tomb every night, and he lived into his 80s. He revisited the tomb in the late 2000s, I believe. Many other characters. Carnarvon's daughter, who was one of the first in the tombs, lived to be an old lady. So I don't believe in the curse. Maybe some do. And tell me what you think. Do you believe in the curse? Are there any other questions you have about King Tutankhamun? It's endlessly fascinating with all of those fantastic objects. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please send me your questions and